So here we are in the tomato patch. Tell us about how tomatoes fit into your operation, how important they are to you, and what your approach is to growing and managing tomatoes.
So tomatoes are very important to us. They're one of our biggest selling items throughout the summer season. It's one of the first crops that we really turn a profit on. I mean, you have things like cucumbers and zucchini that are ready, maybe some peas or beans, but tomatoes are the first kind of anchor crop that we'll start to harvest every year. So we set between 8,000 and 10,000 plants every year, works out to about an acre. So we're not a huge tomato producer by any stretch of the imagination, but that's quite a bit for us to take care of, and it produces plenty of tomatoes for us to sell in the market. This year has been a challenge because of how dry it's been. You can kind of see the older plants that are behind me. You have a lot of leaf curl going on the lower leaves. They're starting to set more tomatoes now, but they were really struggling to flower and to set fruit. So we've been trying to keep as much water to them as we can, but it's been a struggle. The younger plants that I'm standing in seem to be holding up a little bit better. I think it's easier to get enough water to them to keep them healthy and happy. But we spend a lot, tomatoes are a lot of work. We spend a lot of time. We start everything from seed, so we don't buy transplants. We start these all from seed and then, care for them, and we start them in a flat, and we move them over into a cell tray, and then we plant them in the field. So it's kind of a labor-intensive process. We could be a lot more efficient with it if we really needed to be, but we get really healthy transplants this way, and we usually get great production. We'll see how this first set does this year with the stress that they've been under, but they seem to be bouncing back a little bit now after the rain, and we do. We kind of do the Florida weave on all of our tomatoes. We did grow in cages for a long time, but the cages they're kind of a pain to put down and gather up, and then they also led to a lot of misshapen fruit. The other problem with cages is when you start using drip tape. Cages going through the plastic and the drip tape don't get along very well, so you end up puncturing a lot of drip tape. We do have them on our raised bed. That's a new thing for us this year. We've always done our vegetables on flat beds in years past. Because of strawberries, we bought a new bed shaper mulch layer that can make anywhere from a 4-inch tall bed to an 8-inch tall bed, and can lay 3 foot to 5 foot plastic. It's a versatile machine. We loved it for strawberries. We have a lot of poorly drained spots on our farm, and we have heavy soil. And when we get those heavy rains, we found that the raised beds help to get the water away from the plants. And we've been really happy with them. But we do think, however, that might be exacerbating the drought problem. We think that the water might be evaporating faster under the raised bed just because there's more surface area of soil that is covered in plastic and exposed to the sun. So I guess maybe some pros and cons, but we do like the raised beds a lot, and we'll be continuing to use those in the future. And I know a lot of growers are already on raised beds, but it's a new thing for us.
So in this field we're in, I see probably 3 different planting dates of tomatoes.
Yep.
So how far apart do you spread those planting dates?
So we do, this year we're gonna have 4 sets of tomatoes, and the transplanting dates are usually between 2 and 3 weeks apart. And that means we usually don't have any gaps. We're usually able to, pick on one planting, and then we'll have maybe about a week where we're picking on 2 plantings. One of them is kind of on the way out, and one of them's just starting, and then we'll transition fully into the next one. And we'll pick tomatoes in a good year from about the 20th of July through the first week of October. This year, we've been much more aggressive with our later tomato sets. Usually we'll only do, that last set would be like maybe 200, 300 plants. This year it's 2,000 plants. And that's because of the frost that we had on apples. We have time to do these kinds of things later into the season than we normally would. So that's one way we're trying to adjust our production to make sure that we have, plenty of things to pick and plenty of things to sell, and plenty of things to keep the workers busy. And we might even experience with a little bit of protected culture on some of these late ones, some row covers or things like that. I think most of us that have retail markets know that tomatoes are something you can sell year round. I mean, there's never an off season for tomato demand, really.